I'm really excited to tell you guys what we're going to do today. But before I even do that, I'm just going to ask you guys to take a moment and click subscribe. Just go ahead and click the subscribe button, click like, click share, notifications, and all of that. Thank you so much for that. So today, I'm going to switch sides of the camera and I'm going to be the interviewee. And my host today is a very dear friend of mine. I've known him for so many years. And we really kind of trailed together in the natural hair industry as well. Um, I'm just really excited to interview him because we've been friends for so long and there's so much to talk about and it's just going to be so much fun. So much tea today. We're just going to be having all the tea. Um, and also, he's a master stylist and he's been published in magazines and he's done hair for theater and videos and commercials and just is like an all around amazing hairstylist himself. This is going to be the last episode of season our hair story season 2 for Tea with Copy, and I wanted myself to be interviewed as a master pioneer since I've been interviewing master pioneers. So I'm going to have a master stylist interview me today. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring him to the show. Please welcome Charles Harrison to the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanae. Hi, everybody. My name is Charles Harrison. I am a old friend of Tanae, and I know that she normally starts the show off with asking you guys what is your hair story. But first, I'm going to ask her because we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I asked her like why she did this program and what made her get to the point where not only did she want to know your hair story, but also why today she wanted to share her hair story. So first, Tanae, tell me why you wanted to do the show first, and then we'll go back to your hair story.
Okay. So, one of the reasons, I guess, why I decided to do this show is because I had just, been having a lot of alternative conversations with friends, And so my perspective is always kind of open, like, yeah, let's explore life and all of these things that are kind of risque. And so my friends have been saying, oh, you should have a talk show. You should call it Tea with Coffee. And so the name was like cute. And I'm thinking, oh, I do like that name.
It is
So,
good, man.
I like to ask certain questions. And so in the beginning, I really was
Wait,
just
hold on. But you know it sounds like tea with coffee.
tea. It is
With
tea with
coffee.
coffee. I know, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's like a spin on the thing.
Right.
But so anyway, so I said during this whole, like in the beginning of the whole COVID-19 thing, and everything is just shut down, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing? Let me reach inside. What am I going to do with this time? And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to do this show and I'm just going to do it on YouTube and I'm just going to do it next Wednesday. It's a done deal, right? So then I just start pulling all these things together to figure out how to even do a talk show. You know what I mean? And then I wanted to talk about, and I was just really at that moment driven to talk about sexuality and how I was feeling at the time we were like so sexually repressed in the society that we live in. So I wanted to talk about things like gender fluidity and tantra, especially, just kind of connecting with each other on like a love human relationship and, just anything that was around sexuality that is considered to be risque in our society, and just really have people tell their stories. I had some transgenders on the show and just talk about, this story from a human perspective, so that people can hear. These are actual people. These are people that are feeling things that so many people are scared to feel. And I felt like these are like our heroes in a sense. So let's talk about
Right.
this. So then I'm having all these conversations, and I said, you know what? I want to talk about something different the next season. And it was right around the Crown Act Day, right?
Right.
And so that inspired me to talk to the Master Pioneers. Because when you think about the Crown Act being passed in 2019, right? It seems kind of interesting that it's so far, like it took so long for that to happen, but at the same time, this is a conversation that's very underground and people not even aware of it as opposed to even talking about it. And
I think,
these,
like, I mean, if you want to talk about the Crown Act, you look at that at the time that I met you. Let's go back. Okay, at the time,
okay.
today, that's almost 30 years ago.
Hmm.
When you look at what natural hair was at that time, that it was very cultural for a lot of people. I learned so much about culture within the hair field itself, being around today, and Amazon and the salon. But then, you're right, it took 30 years from what I know, what I'm saying, being in the natural hair field, just saying after 30 years that there's finally conversation about hair in the workplace. And it took
Right.
the work that you did, Amazon, and the other pioneers in the industry, you
Yeah.
know.
So that inspired me to want to change the subject and talk about that. And it really gave me an opportunity to connect with all of these women that I really grew up with, but I hadn't had a conversation with them in so many years. And let's see what's happening. Where are we in our heads with this world, especially with the Crown Act kind of blowing up all over the country now and being introduced into the federal system as a law. So um, that's pretty much what happened. That's how I
Okay.
started the
Right.
show.
So let's start at the beginning of your hair journey then.
Like,
So everybody
okay.
knows that your mother is Amazon
Hmm.
of Chicago. That's when I met you. We were like thinking we were 14.
Yes.
And it was 87th Street in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. And for me, meeting Tanae, pulled into this world that I didn't know anything about. I was exposed to natural hair, braiding. At the time that I had hair, it was not coarse. It was not, it wasn't. So it was like this world that she exposed me to, and learning from you, and learning just not only about hair, but I think that a lot of that conversation you were having about sexuality, that comes from that also. That's a journey also.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, it's funny this whole journey for me because my mother was started doing hair. I was a kid, and she had in our dining room. That was the room, right, where she
Mm.
did hair, and then it just kind of got to a point where it's like too much, with the household going on. So she opened up a salon on 87th Street, and at that time, I think I might have been like 13. And I knew how to braid because I had been around it so much, but I really was very reluctant to work in the salon or to help her braid because I was just like, I don't want to do that. That's not my thing. I got my own thing. I was dancing. I was going to be a dancer. That was my thing, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
she could do her braids. And then I started going to the academy and catching the bus like to school every morning in this crazy ass winters and shit. And I was just like, I'm gonna get me a car, I'm gonna drive, I'm gonna do that. So I started as a receptionist in the salon. I was working for like some hourly rate so I can save up to get this car, right? And then they would be there for hours, like hours, like all night long, you know.
It took like 10, 12
So,
hours per head. There were two
right.
people. It still took 10, 12 hours. It's going to be all
And
night.
then, it be getting late and I want to go home. So I would just start braiding down. And
That
then from there, that's how I transitioned to actually doing hair. And I was doing my
it's
friend's
funny.
hair.
I was telling someone this yesterday, and they asked about braiding. I said, "Well, you first really learn by braiding down. You just, you really learn by braiding down, and you just stand there
Right. And
and
that's,
slowly watch this bushel of hair get,
yes.
and you, and you push them on the other person's side.
I know. But see, that's funny because that's how you learn. Because I remember when we wanted to go out, and I would be at the salon like all the time. So then at the end, you'd be like, okay, so what y'all want me to do? You want me to sweep up this hair? Like, so you would like help me get everything together so then
Right.
so we could go out. So then that kind of morphed into, I was like, oh, let me teach you how to braid down. See, if you was braid down, we can get out even quicker. Here we are braiding down so we can go out.
To go out. To go out.
To go
That is,
out.
it's funny because it's for me in my life. It is the one consistent. It's the
Mm-hmm.
one thing that is always going to be there. It's always just going to keep moving the same way. Maybe a little slower, but they're going to keep moving the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to go out.
To go out. And then of course, I guess like my first clients were like the people that were close to me, like um the Island and
Mm-hmm.
Cantries,
Free and free. Yep.
um Akua, just like my friend Zandra. And then like I remember specifically at the academy because I think all the dudes in the academy, like David, Country's Ogletree brother, D Allen, and even Theo. Like I was putting braids in their hair, so then that was kind of like creating almost like this trend with guys were wearing, like almost like this, but just like braids in the top and then shaved off in the back. And so, Terrence Trent D'Arby was like popular then too. So, um, a lot of it and like in the beginning started around almost like creating trends, just like these really creative hairstyles, we're doing the bob and that kind of stuff. And I remember we did a magazine. It was like a Braid World magazine, and you did my hair. But this is almost like the style, right? Because it was this
Oh yeah.
platinum blonde
No, 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 no,
bob.
no, no, no. What happened was on that Bravo magazine was that we needed to get that bob, and six of us did that together. Yeah, like so it was like we all stood next to each other, like right here, right now. We did it in 1 hour. We did it in 1 hour.
My hair was done in 1 hour.
It was
I didn't
no,
even
it
have
was
no
some other
hair.
girl that worked in the salon. She was petite like you. She was really small like you. I can't remember her name. And we had to get one more look for the shoot. And we did a bob. We did that bob like this.
Right.
It was six of us stood around the head like that. And we all had a little section and braided it down. And we cut it to a bob really fast for the shoot.
Wow.
Because she didn't have a full head of hair. It was shaved. So we were able to put a bob in.
Right.
Real,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think I had much hair then. But that bob was quite popular, that platinum
The
blonde
bob was
bob.
iconic.
Yeah.
The bob was iconic. That was a bob that Max off a living single wore, except she had in two long pieces right here.
All right. I remember it was like this little room that my mother had, and she would do her interlock clients. This was on 87th Street. And the bob had become so popular at that time. And I was be in this little room cutting them and styling and curling them. Just, one at a time as they was coming through. I'd just be in there cutting and curling and styling. So, and then, we started doing the flip, and that was like a big trend setting time with braids.
It's so funny that you didn't have any like the styling techniques or tools now for braids that then the only thing you had was a lighter, some hot water, and a little bit of heat. Because you couldn't use a lot of heat because you would have burned it and melted it. So you sit making a curl and holding it like let
Right.
it
Well,
cool.
yeah, because we was using the curling irons too, but then you had to spray and make sure the hair was wet and blow the curl, which I'm still doing.
Let me ask you this. Okay. I'm noticing like in natural hair, their natural hair has gone from there's a fine line between cultural and trend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where they have like I hate to say it, but our Korean counterparts have they would take a style and convert it into an easy way for the consumer to make it like faux locks. How they
Mm-hmm.
literally have it already prepackaged, you can simply attach it to your hair. Things like that. How do you feel about that in the natural hair field versus somebody growing, you know what I'm saying? And how do you have all these ways to emulate a natural look?
Mm-hmm.
It's like in like almost like a prepackaged natural look in a sense because I'm seeing like there's a lot of what they call crochet styles out there where it's like a four head of locks, but it's like all these pre-painted locks that people have just lashed into their hair. Like you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So this goes between being cultural and then also being trendy.
Mm-hmm. So I think that when we started to become more mainstream in the industry, that was always a conversation about whether it's a trend or not. Now, all of these styles are prepackaged. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so then the trend part of it, has more room to expand because you're not putting the hours. I think the hours, the time that it took, the connection that you're
The
making, all of
years.
that, it takes away from the whole experience of it. I do find it interesting, and I don't necessarily know how I feel about it, but I find it interesting to watch the Korean market make these prepackaged braids.
Yeah.
And I'll tell my clients all day long, I'm like, I am a braider. I'm going to put the braids in. That's just what I do.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
not really interested in installing your prefab twist or your prefab locks or whatever. I tend to stay away from that. And I'm not really at this point in my life, it's not about making that dollar. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like most of it for me is about making a connection with my client
I
and giving
agree.
them all the tools that they need to feel
I have a natural
beautiful and
brain.
be natural and
Right.
accepting themselves unveiled. You know what I mean? And really embracing the beauty of that. That's always been important to me in my career.
It's been, and I agree with you. It's for and I think I get that from you as being a educated braider, an educated natural hairstylist, not just saying, "Oh, I just do locks or I braid hair," but
Hmm.
fully understanding what that means. Fully understanding where these techniques came from, understanding that the origin of it, understanding what natural hair fully is, and I think that for me, like I agree with you, it's not about the money. It's the fact that okay, thank God I shed some light on somebody. I
Hmm.
gave somebody an aha moment, so hopefully they can spread it forward and and teach
Right.
people like, girl, that ain't what what they've been telling you wrong. I heard from Tanae that this is how you supposed to do it because now they have a point of reference from an expert. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think that too. One of the other reasons why I was inspired to do the show is because the other part of what's happening now with the internet is the YouTube University. Like everything is on YouTube. So that takes a lot away from, and everybody on YouTube does, they really don't know what they're doing. Like it's a very select few, you know what I mean? So it does take a lot from the culture aspect of it for me, because I think that really learning how to master the craft is more about learning how to do all the parts of it,
I
learning how to treat your client, learning how to be a professional. It's not just the style, you know what I mean, that you want to achieve. Like that's cool, like if you're going to do it yourself, and then it's a lot of practice involved in that. A lot of practice, a lot of coaching, a lot of cultivating involved in learning how to do these things. So we spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours practicing to get better, to become masters. And that does not happen on YouTube. It's, you just got to be there for these kind of things.
right.
Um, so that part, like I'm adjusting to the adjustment, but I still know where I stand in the industry. And a lot of these women have put all of this blood, sweat, tears, and so many hours and other things to make this thing like big enough for everybody to see it, in terms of licensing and being published in magazines and, bringing the awareness of natural hair, with South Shane Johnson and just like opening all of that up. These women are very integral parts of that happening to be on this platform. But of course, nobody is really knowing about who these women are. As they get ready to do their YouTube special on box braids. You know what I mean? So I just thought that that was very important to pay homage to the women that really did
Uh,
get the industry to a
I
recognizable
have, I
point.
have, it's funny is that in conversations with everybody, and I talk about natural hair, I reference the Roots and Claire's and, and Amazon, all the people that came before us, and people understand it's like you have, and I think that what I have a problem with, and I'm going to ask you, like, what is it going to, I know that what I've watched you and Amazon work over the years and Naja over the years work on getting the, I guess, the world to respect natural hair the way they respect conventional cosmetology because they don't respect it by price point. They don't respect it as a craft. They don't respect it as the time wise. They'll pay somebody $200 for a 45-minute color job, but only want to pay me 50 for a 12-hour box rate. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? It's kind of like you don't respect it. You don't. There's. You know what I'm saying? To me, what is it going to take for the industry to the world to realize that natural hair is as what I'm saying? I just feel like the scale is constantly being tipped in the wrong,
Mm-hmm.
in the wrong direction.
I don't know what it's gonna take. I think that we are one day at a time and trying to work it out because it's such a deep wound for the culture of, of not just us
Mm,
as black people, for the whole
mm,
country. Because these things that we're talking about, natural hair and braids and locks and super curly hair that defies gravity, has been a thing that has been portrayed as not beautiful,
yeah,
um, and not professional. And so here we are, trying, and some of these scars go so deep, when you've got to like pull all of that out, that's not, those untruths, and help people really build up their confidence, because that's what you're doing. This is how you look naturally. You have to love it. Once you start
I
loving
do.
yourself, then you build up your confidence, and we all have to do that. Um, and so it's like, so it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And I mean, you look at 2019 as like this happened so late, but at the same time, we're just really probably 40 years into this fight, and we've been hurt by it for hundreds of years,
Yeah,
so we do
it's
have
so fucked
to
up. Definitely.
do a lot of healing basically to get ourselves together, to have the world respected. Because you know how that saying that RuPaul says on his show, but everybody has said it before: if you don't love yourself, how the hell are you going to expect somebody else to love you or whatever? But
Mhm.
we've got to start doing that from a healing perspective in order for it to be important to us, I think. If
Yeah,
that
I
answered
agree. I
that.
agree. I agree with you on that.
Hmm.
'Cause I have for me, like having doing it's odd because my natural clients, they love their natural hair. They treasure it underneath their weave, but they will throw a weave on in a heartbeat to go to work. I just feel like, you got your hair is so pretty and it's all the way down in here, and they would braid it up and throw a weave on in a heartbeat. And I understand sometimes it's hard to manage, but there are so many more options than, I'm not mad about it. But the thing is, this is the crazy part I would get mad about is that this took me 2 hours to do and you will pay me $300. This takes me 10 hours to do, but you get mad at me when I tell you 175. Like, come on now. Like, what is,
Right.
like, I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like, what the,
Because it's the value of what it looks like. So,
it looked good in
how
the
many,
natural. I
right,
mean,
but how many times have you heard a client say, "Oh no, I can't wear my hair, go to work and have my hair looking like that, but I can wear this silly." Excuse me if I'm offending any of you, but I can wear this silly looking wig on top of my head, and
Mhm.
that's acceptable to
Mhm.
them, as if
Mhm.
you're doing them a favor. And
Mhm.
so we've got to have enough confidence in ourselves to feel like we look okay to them, because we're asking still for permission to look the way we look when we do stuff like throw on a wig to go be presentable to somebody who you don't even know what they're thinking, but you think
You
that you
think,
look better.
you think, you right,
Exactly.
you think.
So
That's
then
it, yeah.
you got to be confident in who you are.
I do love when a customer is when they feel weird about when they got their hair done. They're like, oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know.
Wait,
And then they call you, and then they call you the next day after the pain wore off. And be like, oh, this shit is so sweet. I love my hair. Like,
right after they
and
get
the whole
enough
time
confidence.
really the whole time I'm ignoring them, like, oh, whatever, it still look good, it still looks sweet. But they never had natural hair, they never had braids, and they think they want locks, they're like, and it's kind of like, and I get that a lot, like, I don't know, like,
Oh yes, that's so funny that you say that, because I can go all back in my memory bank and think about how many times I didn't heard that, and especially
yeah,
like when we were transitioning people from braids to locks, because that was like a
mm-hmm,
very big thing for me. That when I started locking, I wanted to transition people there, and it's like going a step further deeper into the culture and self acceptance, right? But I remember I'd be laying them comb twists down there too, just laying them, and they be like, oh, I don't know.
but how do they see that full face? They see that
Like,
full face, all that. I think because
right.
people hide behind their hair. They hide behind it. They make it bigger so you see the hair, not them. It's kind of like when you fully see yourself, forced to look at it in a natural state. If you don't find the beauty in that, if you don't find the beauty in that, my hair is healthy, my skin looks good. You know what I'm saying? If you don't find the beauty in that, then that's where you have to start. You got to
Mhm.
find that. You see yourself that way, and then you see it here. You're patient because it's going to get here, going to drive you crazy. Because you want to pull it back in the ponytail, but you can't.
Mhm. Mhm.
But then you look at it like, and I watch people transform themselves through getting locks. Their walk changes, the way they carry themselves. They get called queen 10,000 times by men. Talking about, what up, queen? How you doing, queen? They start to believe it. They start to believe it.
Right, but see, they have to
I'll tell you,
believe it
girl.
before
I'll tell you,
everybody else.
think about how many times you changed your hair versus how they treated you when you shaved your hair, how they treated you when you have your hair braided long. You know what I'm saying? They treat you differently. They look, and then you start to believe that person. You start to walk as that person. You
Mhm.
know.
Yes, that's true. It makes a big difference, how you feel about yourself. And the more you can embrace it and the more you can love it, you don't even think about what other people are going to think about the way you wear your hair.
Right.
That
So let me
is,
ask you this. Before I forget, this is a totally different subject. It just popped in my head, so I gotta ask before I forget.
okay.
So, what do now? There was Nadra and there was Tanae. Now there is Sophia and Amazon. What did they feel about now? You know what I'm saying? That you're in the other seat as being the mother, having two girls that may or may not go into the business. Are they
Um,
interested at all?
no, not really. But neither one of them are. But they like Amazon. My oldest daughter, she wears braids. Like that's it for her.
Right.
And then my youngest one, she wears braids, but then she also likes to wear her hair natural. Like she doesn't even. She like is anti-straight. She just I don't want to wear straight hair, right? So they have, they grew up in that, but right now it's just there's no interest there because there's interest for them in other areas of life, and Amazon is singing, Sophia's into modeling and that kind of thing. So it's I'm giving them this time, to do what they have to do, because I was not interested either.
I was going to say you weren't even interested in it either.
No, especially when I was their age, because I had my own things going on. And then eventually, I would say the industry chose me. You know what I mean? Because once I started, doing platform work and that kind of stuff, then it was for me, I would have decided that this is where I was going to go. Because I spent so many years on the fence trying to, make some money as I knew how and the way that I really like to do it, but then also trying to do my other things that I really wanted to do and doing hair in a very non committal way.
Right,
And
right.
then once I committed, then there was nothing else that I could be doing other than that.
I feel like natural hair keeps like pulling me back. I feel like no matter how hard I try, it just you still doing braids, you still braiding hair. I'm like,
Hmm.
nah, okay, what you getting?
Right.
I had to think about like, okay, so what you want to get?
Right. I mean, you
I said, like,
gotta show. It's a lot. I mean, now even with braids being popular, and before I moved here, I wasn't doing braids at all. I was just doing locks and that's consulting and that kind of stuff. But then but I've learned, to pace myself, right? Because I can't be staying up all night no more. Like I just don't have it in me. So I'm like,
nah.
it's gonna take 2 days. I just set up all the presidents. It's gonna cost this much. If you're still in, then we'll do it. But if not, then I'm good too. Okay.
I just my clients sometimes I'm about that 12th hour. They're like, can we do this finish tomorrow? I'm like, we got 3 more hours to go. Come on.
Yeah. See, I don't have that stamina no
It
more.
is, it's a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot. All those hours, like I always said, if I continue to stay in it, I have to train. I have to do Amazon, just
Hmm.
create clones. Just, like, all I remember is this. I took a time to do this.
No, tell me about that.
We would tap our shoulders to make sure we weren't breathing real hard.
Oh
Like
yeah, the
I remember
tension.
when I tapping my shoulders to make sure, like she was like, just relax, so I wouldn't be all hunched up like this.
Right. Oh wow. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
how come I don't remember that. I know she used to. I do remember that when she used to cut them braids if they wasn't perfect. When they, how she go around and people and braid down their little section and she go inspect the braids and then if they wasn't perfect, she cut them. I think you got.
Oh God, I'm trying to think.
But see, now it's funny because I cannot stand an imperfect braid. Like that just irks me to no end.
It actually like it's almost like I will un I might have like the patience of I can my patience is insane because I will look at like I have to redo it. As bad as I don't want to, as bad as I look at like there's no way I can it's like in Austin Powers the mole, like moly, moly, moly. It just keeps looking at you. Like you just keep looking at that one braid, like
Right? No, I know. Especially like when I do cornrows, it's always like that. It's like, should I do it? Oh no, I can't. I just can't. Not. And your client looking at you like, what's wrong with it? What you doing? Why you? She
oh I
definitely did
swear,
that.
if I think I made only 2 mistakes in my career. 2 mistakes, that was it. One time I poured that product down that girl's back on 87th Street.
Oh, I remember.
I poured that product how long? And then the one when I cut the woman's whole braid off, and Malika was like, "Oh, Charles, why you have to go and do that?" Like, and the woman was foreign. She was like, "She cut my hair. She cut my hair." I was like, "Because Malika, oh, Charles, why you have to go and do that?"
Wait, were you shaving it?
And I cut it at the root on
Oh
accident.
yes, I know. Oh
So okay, so this is funny. Maybe you know more than I do. Like for me, when I came to Detroit from Chicago, like I hit it big because in the '90s there were no male braiders. Now there were male locticians, but now male braiders. And it's still kind of like that way. I don't see that many male braiders in this
Mm-hmm.
field,
I don't
or do
either.
you?
Mm-mm. There's not that many male braiders. No, I
No.
mean that's just not a thing. And that was the thing that was so amazing about you. Coming up is that you were a male braider, and like this really cute male braider. Like, oh, he gonna braid my hair. I'm like, oh no, yes. And really good, like really, really good. Because you had this style thing going on, where you were like always creating styles and I remember like sometimes we would just talk about how we were gonna be innovative about whatever it was.
Oh
Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
those twists, the two strand twists, and then we start putting the human hair at the bottom, and just always.
And see, that was the thing that natural hair gave you this space to be creative because it wasn't a set curriculum. It wasn't a book that you opened up and you had to go say board. You had to follow. There was a guideline for cosmetology. With natural hair, it was something. And braiding was something that was passed on. It was something that was learned and reinvented, or revamped. We looked at it like, okay, how can we make this better? But it took years and experience to do that. It took messing up, fucking up a bunch of times. Like, hey, we ain't doing that shit again.
Right.
But then you realize that, oh, but it's, like the hackle boards that Ron, your daddy made.
Right.
That was like the biggest phenomenon to people. Y'all pull them boards, I still got mine. This is like 25 years old. And people look at them like, and I'm like, from Amazon's. Y'all know nothing about this? Like,
right. Well,
I mean,
now
and
it's
you
the
all were ahead of the
alley.
time then.
Have you seen the alley? Because
Yes.
Nadia, yeah, she's redid them, but I still actually have my original one that my dad made, and it's always one of those things where like, well, what is that? And how does that work? And
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's so many parts of the job to. It's like all the parts around it, as opposed to just doing hair. It's like how do we create all of these things? It was always about creating.
It has to be made. It had to, it's almost like natural hair braiding is truly a art form. You are
Mm-hmm.
creating, building something that you curl somebody's hair, they go home, they don't like it, I go home and fix it. You braid somebody's hair, I can't undo 8 hours. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we are creating not a perfect sculpture or piece of art, but in our heads, we know that what we're doing is a final product.
Yes.
That's what he said about the braids and being anal about it. Like, I can't let her walk out like that.
Right.
You know,
Right. And for something that nobody else would see but you.
it's all the way underneath here. It's all the way right here.
Right.
It's underneath her neckline, right here. You can't even see it.
Right. But no, it's interesting that you said that because I remember when I first started training you to do braids, the first thing that went through my mind was he's an artist. This is going to be something that he'll be able to pick up on very quickly and be very good at because this is an art form. Because, like in the beginning, it was called Amazon Braid Sculpture, right?
Right. It was
And
umbrella.
she,
Oh yeah,
her whole
yeah.
thing like was more like being in museums and being in art galleries and that kind of thing. That's really how the braid sculpture thing started, and then it from there it became an industry and hair, and hair industry. But it was really more in the beginning looked at more as an art form than hairstyles per se, because she's doing like a basket weave. I don't. Do you remember? She didn't. She was doing basket weaves like maybe in the '80s. I think it was popular, but you might have seen her do a couple of them over the years, like back in the 87th Street days. But it was
I
like
remember. Yeah, I remember. I do
you
remember that. I
seen
just remember
basket
Amazon
weave.
the interlocking more than anything.
Yeah, because she
I remember
did
her
it
sitting
like
on that
that.
stool.
Hmm.
pulling her
Yes,
out.
pulling the hair out in the little room. But the basket weave was like it's a cornrow style, right? And then she
Right.
took those braids and weaved a hat out of that, right? And then you could like flip it up, and flip it down, and then she had
And
on like all these ugly
it's the girl
styles.
here that still does that. It's a girl here that
Really?
still does. Yeah, she did a cowboy hat. I was like, okay. Now she is truly. I think she's good, very, very, very good. But her techniques are very much still 87th Street. Still doing
Mm,
very, connect the line, burn on the ends hairstyles, basket
okay.
weaves, yeah,
Yeah,
and the
because
braids and
Detroit. I remember when I was a platform artist for Johnson, and you Detroit be having like their own little block. They have their own block at the shows, right? Especially the
not a lot.
Bronner show. But they were like really back in that days because the basket weave weren't popular anymore. But then it was like they were almost bringing that basket weave back. Because I saw way a lot of basket weaves like in the late 90s from Detroit. And I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. But, Detroit is always like known for that big, exaggerated.
They like sculptural hair. It was always sculptural hair. It was always
Mhm,
updos that were hairspray, pin curl up to death.
mhm.
Hardest. I remember we was on 87th Street and you used to look at them hair books and we used to look at that shit and laugh. Like, what the fuck is this? And we used to all look at hair books and we used to look at Detroit like, oh, what they do? What the fuck they doing up in Detroit? And now I live here.
I know, right? That was good because you should go there and calm them girls down a little bit.
We used to look at them books like, oh my God.
I know, but they were always. I remember even going while I was doing the shows, and sometimes I'd be walking around, and it was like, oh, okay, I'm about to go over here to the Detroit corner, and it was like out of that whole convention center. It was like they had their own little city, almost like going to a different world of the show, because they would just be doing so many
Yeah.
exaggerated hairstyles.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Because at that time, in Detroit, everybody had a hair name. Like everybody was like Lil Willie, Mike, and Baby
Right,
Boy. It
right,
was like so when I moved to Atlanta, they was like, "What's your hair name?" And I'm like, "Just Charles." like hair name. So in a sense, they created these personas that when it came to the show, they had to show up and show out because they wanted their people who wanted to see it. They wanted, they wanted it.
yeah,
Yeah, it is
that's
like
a
a whole
big
little world.
thing. And I remember Lil Willie. Now that you even mentioned that, that was his name, Lil Willie. And then there was
It's all
another guy. I wish I could remember all these names because it was one guy that had like all these muscles. That was a
Big
really
Bad D,
popular, huh?
Big Bad D, Big
Yes,
Bad D.
Big
He had like a
Bad
big
D.
alligator,
Right, right,
like
right, right,
Big Bad D, the long beard that was braided.
yes. And he always had on some, stuff and his muscles and little.
Looked like he looked like James Earl Jones and Conan, just a big old alligator here.
And then there was another guy that had, it was like cool something.
Cool C,
Cool C.
cool C.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. They were like these characters, like this big thing, this big show. We got Detroit, honey. Detroit.
But you know what? It's not even like that. It's not even. It's so funny because people thought Detroit was the hair capital. It was at that time. It was. It was putting all the. It was putting all the magazines that people get in smaller cities. So it was. It became this style, I guess, beacon for blacks. That wanted to do trendy hairstyles because Detroit was flamboyant, and we know our people like crowns. They like a
Right.
big old everything.
Yes.
Just put this on my head. Just like it's Atlanta now. It is truly
Yeah.
Atlanta now. But
Oh
what's funny is like when I moved to Atlanta, like I didn't do any locks at all. It's like because everybody in Atlanta has locks. If I didn't have locks, they're like, you don't have locks. I'm like, I didn't have hair. Like I would have huge lock clientele in Detroit. My lock clientele was huge here, at the time. And then I moved to Atlanta because Atlanta is Atlanta. If you don't have an African name, you got a licorice root in your mouth. They don't believe you do natural hair.
You stupid.
I'm serious. I want to know, like, this. I was curious about this. Like, how, like, I guess it's not hard, but I never thought about like Hawaii African Americans in braids.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question.
How do you find that in
So
Hawaii?
this is Hawaii is Maui is which is the island I live on. There are not that many black people on the island, right? But
Mm.
there are some, and we're like spread out all around the island. And I even think in some situations the name Amazon even kind of superseded over to Hawaii. And just a couple of sisters that I would run into. And I had locks when I first moved here 16 years ago, and people would ask me, "Oh, who does your hair?" and that kind of stuff. And I do it. Oh, yeah, I do hair, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't, when I came here, it wasn't a thing that I was going to be doing. But of course, it's a thing that I'm always doing, right? And I was,
Right.
taking care of my babies and that kind of stuff. But then I just started getting I'd do this girl's hair, and then I'd have another black girl say, "Oh, who did that?" And when I came here, it was one braider on the island, but she was, braiding out of her house and really didn't have the kind of expertise that I had. You know what I mean? So, um, then I started kind of picking up a little traction, and I would rent these little one man studios, in buildings, commercial buildings, and I did that for a little while. Um,
Okay.
Here it's so interesting and it's almost confusing because Hawaii is not one of those vacation places where you get your braids done. This is what I think. Okay, so that's going to happen in the Bahamas or something like that where the culture is African, right? But somehow, this little lily world we live in, it's like, oh, you go to a resort on the island, I gotta get braids. So then they start doing these little cornrows, like with the rubber band, they call them island braids. And so for me, once when I was still in commercial spaces, I'm like, I don't know if that's something that I can cater to. You know what I mean? Like, because for me, it's way more about the culture, So I'm not
Right.
like trying to give these white folks an experience that really is not even about the Hawaiian experience. This is getting your hair braided is not really
It's kind
that.
of like it's kind of like pacifying their ignorance.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I knew that once that started happening, I'm like, I can't even cater to that group. And it became a thing where I did a couple of people in the beginning that probably saw an ad in the paper and they were visiting and they were able to get in. But you know how my styles are. It's not like you just show up like you at the hotel and wait for that girl to do it and it's done like that. And like I'm an appointment only. You cannot just show up and your expectation of like you're just gonna go get an ice cream cone is like so disrespectful to the culture. That's how I always felt about that part of it being here. So I never really opened myself up to that market. Plus, when you call me, I'm already booked out 2 weeks. So it's not a thing. And really, I need to stay focused on the culture. Like here, I'm thinking just, put a flower in your head, figure out which side it goes on, try to tap into some of the things that are part of Hawaiian culture.
Okay. Right. You're Hawaii, not Jamaica.
Right,
But I'm
exactly.
gonna
So
break
let's not, so that's kind
the
of
boat there.
the
Take the
little
boat there,
piece
guys.
of the market, right? And then the other part for me, which and a lot of the things that I decided to do when I was doing hair here, it was things that I was not doing anymore or decided to not do when I was doing hair in Chicago.
Uh,
And like I would get a lot of because it's very multicultural. So you do have a lot of young children with white mothers and they have no idea what to do with their hair. So that
yeah.
was kind of,
Yeah.
so I'm just, almost catering to the community in a way. And that just started happening in that way. And
I think that is
so,
actually a necessity. You
mhm,
know, I've had quite a few mixed race children. Their parents ask me like, "I don't know," and it's an honest answer. I mean, it's an honest question. It's
mhm,
not like you're making fun of anything. It's like it's a lot, you know, because these mixed race kids have a lot of hair, like a
mhm,
lot of hair.
mhm.
You got one, a lot of hair. You know, it's
Right,
like
yes, she got a lot of
so
hair.
for a white mother, that's a lot to take on. You know,
Mhm,
that's a lot to take on. It's like you don't even know where to start. Like, do I
mhm.
start here? Do I start here? You know, like,
Right, and it's a
yeah,
full-on learning experience for everybody.
yeah.
And then the children have a sense of connection with somebody that looks like them.
Mm.
And somebody that can really relate to their beauty experience. So, and I wasn't really doing young people at all, you know what I mean? But now here I am taking these young people, because you know they don't always have the best behavior. Getting their hair done. I'm like, I got two kids of my own. I
And
got to do their hair. I do not need this.
the thing I do is I tell the parents to leave, like parents they gotta go, and then I give them my iPad and some headphones on Netflix. I'm like, here you go, and they're fine. They're fine. But I
Yeah,
make the parents gotta go. They only act up when the parent is there. They
they do.
show out
That's
when the parent
true.
is there.
That's
When the
true.
parent is gone, we have a good time.
Yeah,
Like, what you want to watch? Get an iPad, some headphones, and I am good.
yeah.
You know.
So that's pretty much what it is for me. And I'm not doing hair full time anymore. You know, with all of the my neck and my shoulder and all this kind of stuff. Um, from so many hours of repetitive motion, I'm starting to feel it in my spine. But I do have.
I know it's like it's funny. It's because it's crazy because I cannot like for some reason say no. Like my clients, I'll tell them like if I know you, yeah, okay, you could convince me, talk me into it. New clients, but for some reason I just can't say no. I don't know why.
I have
It's
that
like the
same
one.
problem.
Do you?
Hmm. I do. And sometimes it's like definitely I can't say no to certain situations because people actually give me like stories and scenarios, and I'm just like, oh, I had to know all that. But since you told me all that, I'm considering it. I actually just did, and I couldn't believe I was doing it, but I did a lock extension like from scratch, probably about 2 weeks ago. It took me 3 days to do it.
3 days.
And I told the girl, I said,
What
look,
you do it?
I made them
3 days?
all. Yeah, in
How small
sections.
was they?
Huh?
How
They
small were
were like
they?
down to here. And they were pretty small, you know, like maybe like this size or so.
Okay.
And then I just did them from scratch. You know, I made the base and I latched everything in and wrapped it around like all this. I didn't work 3 days straight, but um, there you are. I didn't work 3 days straight, but I needed 3 days in order to complete that.
Mhm.
So I know that I can't be. I'm I give myself the time. I'm like, okay, I'll do it, but you're gonna have to be
Come
on
back.
board, right?
But you know what? Honestly, a lot of clients that know you know your work, they don't have a problem with that. You
Mhm.
know, as long as you're honest with them, like, look, it's gonna take a minute, and you say why? Because it hurts. Like,
Mhm.
it kind of takes a toll on my body.
Yeah, yeah. And the more I explain that to people, the more because I have clients that I was doing in one day that I'm saying now no, it's going to take us 2 days, so I get them accustomed to that whole routine, even if we just do the front this time and then make an appointment and do the back the next time. And I explain to them, this is why my back hurt, this is a lot of hours. Can you just imagine, every time you stand up to take a break and your butt is hurting? It's the same thing for me. So
And that's I see that my clients are like, "Oh, my butt hurts." I'm like, "How do you think I feel? Like,
mhm.
how do you think I feel?" Like, I don't
Mhm.
want to say that like that, but it is a lot. So, what do you like? You can't we can't do hair forever. We can't be behind that chair at 6 years old doing braids. I know we're African American. We got, but we ain't fully African, so like, we can't do it. Like I can't be like my mama's doing rice
Like
patties at 100.
we watered
You know,
down here.
right?
I think that
Yeah.
there are other aspects of the business to become a part of. And so
Do
I,
you think there's room for you now that you're on YouTube to look at educating through YouTube, so that you have a larger audience?
um, sure, sure. I mean, actually been having this conversation
Really?
with a client of mine that I really want to train because really for me, I need to train somebody. And we were, what was she calling it? The Hero to Zero or Zero to Hero challenge. And she
Yeah.
wanted to record our sessions, or I should say, document our sessions together in a certain amount of time and kind of promote it on YouTube as her Zero to Hero. So, like when she first starting until when she's, masters some skills in terms of braiding. And then just have some snippets in between of us, of me training her um, how to braid. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. I like this whole
So, ladies and
idea.
gentlemen, here, we're going to start a series of braiding classes coming in the next 2 months. So, tune in. We're going to talk about beginners courses, how to start a braid, doing novice braids, how to feed braids, proper etiquette for customer service, the history of braids.
Oh, I love this. Yeah. So yeah, we're
I think
doing.
it's a good way for, you have a great personality. You are able to educate in terms of somebody being able to understand what you're saying. And I think that you're able to, sometimes we have to be right there with the person, but we are in a sense with YouTube. I
Hmm.
think that's a really great way for you to continue to spread the education that, because I know braids are good out there, but sometimes they don't have that background.
Hmm.
That's, I think, is really necessary because I'm a firm believer. If I ever had a braid salon, 50% got to be African. It has to be. I'm saying. But that's what we had at Amazon's.
That's
We
true.
had, it was 50% was Africans, and
Hmm.
I think that's a vital part of it. It is a necessary part of black, natural hair braiding.
Yeah.
You have to have that root there. You
Hmm.
have to have that root there. But that's where braiding came from.
Yeah.
I think that's necessary to have a full understanding about, and that's why I appreciate about Amazon. And learning from you was learning that, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah. I definitely think that was important for us to be together doing braids. That was very special to have 50% of Africans at the salon. It was just, just to hear about their experiences, but two, they brought this. Um,
Like the conversations that we had in female circumcision, like what the hell? Like you
hmm.
having that from a
Right.
Nigerian conversation, from a Nigerian aspect,
Hmm.
that is there's certain things that you would are exposed to that
Hmm.
I feel like are very necessary. It's very
Yeah.
necessary for you to, like, we make fun of Africans, we da da da. But at the end of the day, there's so much more that we have pulled from them,
Hmm.
and especially braiding, and I think it's
Yeah.
where it started.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. One of the things that I wanted to say about teaching is online is and to me is when you're not looking, hovering, right, over your student, finger placement, you can't do that on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I find interesting about this Zero to Hero project, I'm calling it that already, is that there is a person learning and a person teaching. So sometimes, you know how you're in a class and somebody will ask a question that you were thinking, and so then you get to learn from that. So I think it's important to see people learning. I think,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, in a sense where really you're just kind of demonstrating on the tube. You got the class in your bathroom and you're just kind of like, put this here and put this there. But people, like, because your fingers do all of this intricate stuff. Sometimes people need to be like, oh no, put it there and see the hair and feel that or feel the way it feels or have their fingers placed in a certain particular way. Like, I couldn't imagine learning all of these things on a video. I just couldn't
It could be done.
imagine
It
it.
could be done.
Sometimes when I watch the videos,
It's
just to
the
see the new
teacher. It's the
stuff.
teacher. It's the teacher. And you can get glasses that you can look directly and they can see your hands directly the way from your perspective.
Hmm.
And the thing is, I can rewind it 1,000 times. You know,
You will have
just
to.
think, just think, just say it. I'm
We're
just
gonna do
saying.
this zero to hero thing. I'm kind of excited now. I gotta go call this girl up and tell her we're doing it. Let's get started. Charles
You
is gonna
should.
help us brand it.
You should. I mean, I think that because it's for me, it's valuable information. I know that what I learned, the way I learned it, is value. I actually learned something other than Brady. I learned
Hmm.
everything else that went with it. I learned because the conversations were no longer about Brady. We find ourselves talking about natural food. We find ourselves just having conversation that revolved around this natural lifestyle. And when you
Hmm.
hear it over and over again, it becomes ingrained in you. And so
Hmm.
those things, that I've heard and learned in the salon were a part of that natural world, not
Yes.
only of the, when we say quote unquote culture, about, I've learned so much about, I didn't know nothing about Nina Simone at 14 years old until I met you. For Farrakhan, ladies and gentlemen, our first date, we were 14 years old, and she took me to see Farrakhan speak. Now, mind you, I was platform shoes and a motorcycle jacket. And when they got me there, they separated the men and the women. I was like, I gotta go by myself. So I know nothing about that, Farrakhan. So she taught me so much just about the natural lifestyle. And I think that that's the part that I want you to be able to share.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's the part that is so important for people to understand where this comes from, you know. And it's just not, I'm giving me some dreadlocks because it's cute. Girl,
Right.
bye.
Yeah.
It's like understand the journey behind it, understand the history of it, understand what this is truly about. And I think this is a great avenue for you to do so.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I totally agree. I do.
you better keep on. Don't You better do it. I'm gonna call somebody else. Happy to be happy. Somebody tell them I got an idea.
Yeah, boy, please. This shit is it's on the record. I'm like, no, I got that video, honey. We was talking, no. But no, yeah, for sure. You should help us
I
brand
am.
it
I
because I
am.
think it'll be really fun. She's young, she's a millennial, you know what I mean? So she brings that energy to the table.
Right.
But I think it'll be like something really fun to do, just to bring to watch somebody go through that process. Because we're always talking about it, the learning process. And I
It's and
have.
it really is a lot. It is a
Hmm.
lot. And I took that time, like you can learn it, but it's going to take a minute for your hands and your body and
Yes.
your head to
Hmm.
get around the fact that I'm about to be doing this for 8 hours,
Right.
and for you to not start making parts bigger.
Hmm.
The client can't see the mirror because you don't want to see the fact you want to reframe because you tired now.
Right, right, right. Like everything in the back is all opened up. She can only wear a ponytail with these individuals.
You be lying to your client talking about, well, I made the parts bigger so you can put it back up easier. It's easy to put your hair up if you tired.
Yes, right.
Just like there's so
So,
much that goes into it. I tell people all the time, like that's why I don't mind sharing information. I do
hmm.
not mind it because I'd rather whatever it is so that you don't walk around ignorant or doing something the wrong way or telling people, well, it's a Versace. No, honey, it's Versace.
Right.
Like, you walk around here thinking you're supposed to even know. So, and because whatever it took me to master, it's going to take you a minute. And if you take it and you run with it, God bless you.
Hmm.
That's what it's there for. The information is not meant to be hoarded. It's not meant to be like, I know this technique and you can't,
Right.
share it. That way more
Hmm.
people know about it and more people understand it. More people can say, oh, so it won't take my edges out,
Right.
like,
Well,
because that's what
that's
everybody
funny.
thinks that you get your hair braided, Africans gonna take your edges out. It's like,
All the misconceptions. But that's part of the hair, the natural hair care part of it. Where
Yeah.
we learn how to take care of our hair and what's good for our hair and what is not. You know what I mean? That's the one thing that you just made me think of when you said sharing information, because all of these women, that we talk about, the master pioneers and all of them, they lived all over the country, the world. And they
Hmm.
would come together and have this sharing of techniques. And that's what all of the conventions and the hair shows and the networking events were about, is them coming together and sharing their gifts, and then always building on top of that, because then you share your gift with this woman and then she's going to take that and make it into something totally different, or
Like
she'll
each other
use lint
again.
fiber with her twist. Remember, I don't know if you remember, like lint fiber used to be like so popular with the two-part twist, and then the
Hmm.
yarn, and then all these different levels that you can take this stuff to when you start to share it, and with all of these other minds. So that part, I think, and this is before, because there's no real platform to do that kind of sharing on a screen. You have to
There was
be
at that
together.
time you had to be present. You had to be, yeah.
Hmm.
But the thing is that a year would have gone by till you saw them at the next year's convention, and in that year's time, you have expanded what you learned, modified it, and
Hmm.
brought that, and so it began to continue to grow.
Right,
With
right.
share technique.
Yes.
Yeah,
So we'll figure out
girl.
how
Some of
we're
these,
doing that.
baby, some of these hair stylists today, I swear to God, in the salon, they just. I'm like, really? Like, you look at my shoulder, they're like,
Yeah.
you just blow drying, girl. I don't want you to see how I blow dry. Girl, she don't go somewhere. She don't go somewhere. Playing with me. uh,
Oh,
I mean, it's because I had one girl in Atlanta. Like, she would like in the salon, she would watch me like a hawk, and the other sides began to say something about it, and I had to like ask her. I told her one day, it's like, if there's anything that you want to know from me, you can ask me. Like, I don't have a problem saying to you. So then I had like this really long conversation with her, just about working in the business, and then she went on to just blow up like huge, like in
mm,
Atlanta. Like, and I was so happy, and she, told me I went to her salon, and they were like, "Oh, you're Charles," and I'm like, "Yeah." And they were like, "You're the one that, Tony. You're the one that told Tony how to do hair." I said, "No," and I went to ask her. I said, "Are you telling your staff that I taught you?" She said, "You did." And I was like,
mm.
"Oh," and I just kind of looked at it like I was just sharing information. I was just kind of like. And then to see her blow up, I didn't think it was because of anything I taught her. I just thought that she was just doing really good, which she did. But I just, I never saw that sharing information was competition. I never saw it as I was losing anything or I was going to lose a clientele. I just feel like you have to share that information, especially in a field that is already, I wouldn't say at a disadvantage, but it's already, still fighting for recognition. So
Right.
we need every voice and every advocate that we can get
Hmm.
in terms of natural hair.
Right. And that's how we grow, is through sharing. Um, and so, and that's kind of like the natural course of the industry, is to pass the torches along. And I've always seen that, my mother being one of the biggest torch passers in
Hmm.
Chicago, you know what I mean? But I think it goes hand in hand with helping the industry grow, is that we are constantly passing the torches along. We're sharing, we're creating together, and the competition is not a thing, in the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah,
um,
it's funny. I'm so proud of Nadra. That's so funny, Nadra. Somebody that did not want to go into it at all,
I know, yes. And here she
but just
is.
did not want to go into that at all. And just see her and what she did with Amazon, and just so proud
Hmm.
of her. Like,
Yeah,
so proud of
yeah.
her.
And so, and that's, the result of passing the torch.
The
It's
torch on,
like,
yeah,
yeah, taking everything to the next level. And it's just important for us, in this industry, as a people, in the culture, all of that, to really be able to do that, because that's the important part of it. It's not about like how many YouTube likes you get and whatever the hell it is. It's all about preserving the culture. It
Right,
really
I agree.
is. And building it up and making it better and creating our own standards of beauty. Because I think, like, in the beginning when we started doing publications and things of that nature, people started to see natural hair in a different light, in a more glamorous kind of way. And I always felt like the more exposure, that's probably why I did so many publications at that time. Because I always felt like the more exposure we give, then the more we can set the standards for what beauty is to us as a people, and not be subject to this whole idea of something that we'll never achieve. You know what I mean? Like, you're just not gonna look like somebody that you're not. No matter how many wigs you put on and all of this kind of stuff, this is unachievable. But guess what? Your shit is the bomb, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's the like. And the other thing is also like everybody thinks that natural hair is just braids and locks. I see, especially you look at in New York and Brooklyn, you see so many sisters that will just blow their hair out, do a good old magic CJ Walker pinup and just be softly pulled back, and it's natural
Mm-hmm.
and beautiful.
Yeah.
And so that's still natural hair. Everybody thinks that natural hair is I have it braided or locked. No, natural hair is a celebration of what God gave you.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
taking your natural hair and putting it in this state of one, because you have to wash and you blow dry. You have to wash and clean your hair anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when you wash and clean it? You have to style it. Why do you have to style it by straightening it? Why can't you just take it in its natural state, pin it up, put it back, whatever you want, and it's still beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some girls just like simply blow dry their hair, not even straight, but soft blow dry and pin it up. I'm like, hey, that's bad as hell. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the girl.
Mm-hmm.
She embodies it, she walks it, that's her lifestyle, that's who she is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that shit looks good,
Yes.
like because she's owned it.
Yes.
I think that if you saw people that own it, that own their natural beauty, it's not just that
Mm-hmm.
part about getting a natural hairstyle. You got to own that.
Yes, you do.
You
You
know.
gotta own it, and that's the end work. The inward work comes in, and the inside is being able to feel it so you can own it, being able to
Hmm.
know it so that you can own it, and
Hmm.
those are the points that that's where we come in. That's where we counsel. That's where we help. That's where I always
That was the other, yeah,
we're like
about passing the
oracles.
torch on. Is that's the other thing that you also have to pass on? Is that part of it also?
Mm-hmm.
Is like you said, the counseling and the coaching, because that's all a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's really trying to get a woman to understand, like, why do you hate your hair? You know what I'm saying? Why you keep on referring to this thing as ugly? It's alive. It reacts. Believe me. You keep on telling me I'm ugly enough, I'm going to start looking the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start saying how beautiful it is. You'll start. It changes. When
Yeah.
you change.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
because you have people all the time that, I mean, go to hairstylists and like, I'm going to the same girl. My hair just keeps on breaking off. I'm like, first of all, does she argue every time that you there? You know what I'm saying? Is she like have a really fucked up attitude? Like that's sitting in your head. It's right here.
Mm-hmm.
like, like
Mm-hmm.
finding that hair, and I think that for natural hair, you understand that it's such a spiritual thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It
You
is.
know, it's yeah.
It's amazing. We're so amazing, and if we knew it, then the power just would be
It's
undeniable.
the first. It's so simple. We coined this phrase "black girl magic." It's all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
black girl magic is an afro that is right here that you can blow dry out, and it's down here. That's black girl
Mm-hmm.
magic. That hair that is
Mm-hmm.
this Kurt Kinky can be this wet. But you put a little
Right.
bit of heat on there, it's the hair down here.
Okay.
That's black girl magic right there. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
when you realize that there's so much about you that is so special, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what with Amazon and natural hair getting you are getting women to, because you were coaching women in there. You were talking about African American women that were making this move to wear natural hair. That was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
To in the 90s come on, wear that to work. So in this
Yeah.
sense, you would have to build their support and their confidence up. at the same
Mm-hmm.
time that you were building that hair up. You
Yes.
put in a braid, every single braid you put in it, tell her, girl, get it, girl, get it. Girl, you can do this.
Right.
Girl, you can do this. So you
Mhm.
hyping her up to me so she
Right,
wanna
right. Oh, girl, when they see you, honey, right.
good
Seriously.
luck.
Oh, that's
Oh,
funny.
oh, I remember one time we had this, I don't know if you remember, it was a little girl that came in the salon. She got her hair cornrowed. And she said that the kids said to her in school, nah, girl, that ain't fair. Get that horsey back his hair. And they said, nah, girl, that ain't true. What the horsey do to you? And we were like, what did you say? She said, I didn't say nothing because I knew I was cute, though. I was like, okay, that's not
Oh,
bad. I remember it
see,
was a little girl in the salon. I said nothing. She said,
that's
nah,
funny.
girl, that ain't fair. Get that horsey back his hair.
No, because I remember they used to say at school. Kids,
That's awful.
kids are terrible. They're terrible. Well, Charles, even though I'm not the host of this show, we have gone way
Tonight.
past our time.
Oh, oh.
So,
Second boxes. So we had to take that time off.
right, we had the pre-show.
We had to
Um,
pre-show.
but is there any last words before we leave each other?
Oh God, any last words, any last words, any last words. I would say that I hope that after this conversation that we're able to work together to spread the word or help people in terms of natural hair. I think for me, what will be very satisfying for me would be able to see um, I don't want to say taken serious, but I just need it to really be respected the way that it should be. I really need it to be respected to this. Let's take that word nappy out. Let's kind of like stop looking at it as this really bad thing. Let's stop, and using whatever platforms that we can and working with you to kind of how do we create not this another ways, but how do we magnify the one that's already there?
Hmm.
How do we kind of put a little fire underneath the flame that's
Hmm.
already going?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm. I think that's beautiful.
yeah,
Hey,
because I just for me, it's like I said, it's the one thing that keeps coming back. It's the
hmm,
one thing that I kind of, no matter how I try to run away from it, it's the one thing that people are going to remember me for. It's the one thing that I'm very proud of.
hmm,
To be a male braider, to say that I
hmm.
am a male braider, not a loctician, not about a thousand
Right.
locticians. I'm a male braider.
I
I'm just
know,
ignorant.
honey.
No, this is
Yes,
so
and a
ignorant. I'm
very
gonna say
good one at
this
that.
is this is so ignorant. So they used to say about me when I first moved here, they're like, it's this guy named Charles. He braid just like the Africans, girl. Like, he don't be sound like no curry. I'm like, thanks.
Wait, what happened?
They would say that, but I'm so proud to be a male braider, though.
I didn't even know curry was their thing.
Black folks is just ignorant. They would say it too. I'm like, oh, wow. We don't say that.
I thought that was the Indians.
We really should you should really do a show on the misconceptions of natural hair. Let's start with that.
Oh my
Everything that you
God,
thought
that
that you
sounds
knew about
great.
it,
Right.
you said what?
I said that sounds great. I probably
Let's
can
make
talk
the,
to my clients for this show.
you said what?
I probably can talk to my clients for this show because that's where that information comes from.
There's so many misconceptions. There's so many things that people think that I can't get this, I can't get that. I'm like, no, you're wrong. What you think is completely wrong because no one's ever stopped to educate them. No one ever just say, people are like, you just don't tell, I ain't gonna tell her. Whatever. But I think that the
Hmm.
goal is to educate, so you
Right.
can still start having these false prophets. Oh my
Right.
God, this is gonna be better for you, not that. Girl, bye. People think that. I mean, everybody thinks that you get braids, your edge is gonna be gone. Everybody thinks I'm gonna get braids, my hair gonna fall out. I'm like, no, no, no,
It's
no.
almost just an excuse to not embrace themselves. That's really what it is an excuse to not want to embrace yourself because guess what happens when you slap chemicals on your scalp every month? Guess what? You know what I mean? Like that's better for you. You
And
think
your babies end up with
right, and
birth
you
defects. That's what happens.
right or no edges. This is why you know edges. Why you slapping that gel on there and pulling it back in that tight ponytail. Do you think your edges are going to grow from that? So let's check the behaviors before we start trying to figure out what the problem is, because
Yeah.
the behaviors are not healthy behaviors. Straightening your hair with chemicals and heat is not more healthy than wearing braids, but
It's funny because there is a stylist, not gonna say any names, but they are completely anti-weave, anti-adding anything to the hair, braids and all that. They say it's damaging. So she takes these videos and always shows the person with the most fucked up head. I'm talking about patches, bald, all is gone, edge is gone. And I'm like, okay. But then she'll style it and it's sweet, but she perms the hell out of it. And then it's so colored to hide everything. I'm like, but you just kind of like, it's counterproductive.
right. So that's not
Counterproductive.
better, but it's an excuse to not embrace your culture. It's an excuse to not embrace your own beauty. And as it sounds crazy to have an excuse to not embrace yourself or to embrace your beauty, that's part of the healing process. It's like
Yeah.
we're so damaged by, this like constant beating down of our beauty that we're scared to embrace our beauty. And so then we come up with all of these excuses on why we cannot and why it's not a good idea.
You see, the bad part is this is the part about women. It's a hard part is that embracing the beauty. The hair is only one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You start talking about body issues, you start talking about color issues. It's just so many issues that are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like where do you begin? You know,
Yes. And I
yeah.
mean, really, you just got to get rid of all of it and just be okay with
You.
you. Just start walking around naked or something. You know, I think that's actually one of the biggest liberations you can do for yourself is just go
I don't
around.
need that to happen. I don't need that to happen. No, I don't need that to happen. No, I run past the mirror sometimes.
Go
No, I don't need that to
outside
happen.
naked, just be like,
Turn the light off.
I'm out here. I'm out here. What? What?
No, mm,
Shut
uh-uh.
up.
We don't need to do that. We just need to meditate and we just need to eat clean, do affirmations in the mirror. We don't
Yes,
need to.
that helps as well.
Well, today I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you on this is the season finale. Oh my
This
God.
is the season finale. So, oh my
The
God. I'm
season
so
finale.
glad that I got to share this with you.
Yeah, this is what's funny is that this that people don't even understand there are like 1,000 stories involved in this conversation. Looking at this is the cool part is that this friendship started 30 years ago. Um, it has been a lot of miles between us, but the friendship has never, ever, 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 ever wavered, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the best part about this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is just it's just I like that. It's
I
cool.
did too. It's so special. I love you so much. I
Yeah.
wish I could just hug you right now.
I'll tell y'all right now what she done taught me. I done made some good money off of a good career. Been a lot of places. This hands done touched a lot of heads, honey.
That's true, honey. Yes. It
And have
definitely
you ever
provided a
stopped to
wonderful
think about if
experience.
you counted the number of braids that you have put in somebody's head, it is insane. It
I
is
would not
unreal.
even attempt to do that.
It is unreal. And it
I'm
is
not
so
gonna.
unreal that much energy we have put into other people's heads.
Mm-hmm. It
That's a lot of
is. It is. It's been quite a bit. Well,
yeah.
my closing statement is going to be: love yourself and be beautiful. I love you all.
Oh,
And just as simple as that, love yourself and be beautiful. Um, and then we'll be back for season three, coming up shortly. Season three is called Maui Gems, and I'm going to be talking to some very special people on the island and really just kind of focusing on our little Ohana right here on Maui and all the special people that go in it. So I'm going to pick some gems and we're going to start having some Hawaii experiences for season 3. Maybe Charles will come join us.
In this segment.
No, we might have to take Maui Jims outside a little bit. Go outside and yes, see some beauty of the island because it really is special. So that's it for me. And I'll keep you guys posted on season 3 and when it's coming out, and if we do any shows in between that and what's happening. As long as you have subscribed and you got your notifications, you'll see all of that. All right. Okay, so see you later. Aloha.